Welcome to Figure Feedback. My name is Jeremy, and today I'm going to be talking about the Creality K2 Plus because it is almost time for pre-orders for this printer to go live. And Creality is really pulling out all the stops to make sure that it can tempt as many people as possible into buying this printer by offering up some pretty steep discounts, even though they haven't even told us the price yet. So the pre-orders for this printer is going to go live on June the 5th, starting at 9 a.m. Eastern time. And I'm going to show you what those deals are like and also talk a little bit about the specs of this printer from the official website, as well as some things that I managed to get to dig up through looking at some YouTube videos that were not in English, but they did have subtitles. And I think that they gave some pretty interesting information that you might be interested in. So let's take a look at the official website for the Creality store. This is the page that is going to be on. Never mind this PayPal as low as $538, because right now they have this set internally as being like a $9,999 printer. That is not the price of it, but it's just a little placeholder price until it actually becomes available. And if you want to see the type of sales that they are going to have for this printer for these pre-orders, my goodness, would you take a look at this? Starting on June 5th at 9 a.m. Eastern time, you will be able to get 50% off on this printer that's limited to 200 pieces worldwide. And if you miss that, the very next day, 500 pieces are going to be available at 40% off. And then if you miss that, about a week later on June the 14th, you're going to be able to get it for 30% off and 800 pieces available. And then the last chance sale is going to be July 1st. And that's a 20% off for 1,000 pieces. Now, if you are interested in picking this up, and I'm also going to go over some reasons why you might even want to hold off, I am going to have links in the description for every territory that Creality is selling this printer to. And if you do use those links, full disclosure, it will help me out, it'll help the channel out, and I'll really appreciate it if you did. But now let's take a look at some of the other incentives that they have. Look at this. This is like a Kickstarter type of thing going on here. Score free add-ons with every purchase. Let's reach new heights together. The more we accomplish, the more fantastic rewards you will receive. So look at this. There's 700 pieces sold, and that's going to give, I'm assuming, everyone, maybe, random roll of Creality Hyper PLA filament. 1,500 pieces will unlock the K2 Plus build plate, and if you go all out and 2,500 of these get sold, Creality Space Pi Filament Dryer Plus that has an $89 value. I mean, if everyone is going to get this, if they get up to 2,500 of these printers sold, then that's another pretty decent incentive as well. We'll see how far they get with this, but let's take a look at some of these specs. Now, we first heard about this printer some months back, and they gave us some specs about it, but let's just kind of go over it again. Well, we know that this is the multicolored 3D printer. You can add up to 4 of their CFS units together in order to print a maximum of 16 different colors. That is really awesome. They got a new APUS direct drive extruder, tilt detection, closed loop motors. It's got that big build volume, and that's one of the other big things about this, 350 millimeters, and then also has an active chamber heater, so that'll help you to print some more of those exotic filaments. So down here is just really a rehashing of what we just saw up there, some prints that they say were done on this, and then we see where this printer is going to be available. US and Canada, we have all of these countries over here in Europe, and then in other regions, Japan and Australia. And here's the spec sheet that's a little bit more in depth. All right, so first of all, this is not a lightweight printer. Just take a look at this net weight. So that's for everything that doesn't have like that's not a part of the package. Just when you take everything out the box, how much is this thing going to weigh? The K2 Plus combo net weight is 38.5 kilograms. 38.5 kilograms is roughly around 85 pounds. So that is not light. This is going to be a pretty solid structure, it sounds like. Printing speeds around 600 millimeters per second, acceleration speed 30,000 millimeters per second squared. And we can also see that the nozzle temperature is going to get all the way up to 350 degrees Celsius. The bed is going to get up to 120 degrees Celsius, and that bed is powered with 800 watts of power. And then if you choose to use the active chamber heater, you can get it up to 60 degrees Celsius. So hey, that ain't not bad. Some other specs of this printer includes 2 different cameras. Now you're going to have the regular camera that's just for, monitoring your prints, that sits over on the side, but then it has another camera they're calling the calibration AI camera that sits right by the nozzle. So in my head, it's the nozzle camera, something that you can tune into to maybe see if there's anything stuck to your nozzle. I get a little bit nervous when filament gets stuck to my nozzle because I don't want it to build, but they actually put a camera right there. You got the regular filament runout sensor, which is great to have, but in addition to that, you have what I think all 3D printers moving forward should have, which is the filament tangle sensor, because that's a very common occurrence with 3D printers. So being able to detect that there's a tangle going on and stop the print so that you can correct it instead of just missing out on layer after layer after layer and then coming back to see it just printing in midair, hopefully will be a thing of the past. It's also got some air purifiers inside of that chamber. Auto leveling, auto calibration, auto everything. Is one of those printers where you can, theoretically set it and forget it. It does everything by itself. You use the Creality Print 5 in order to do your slicing. You use something else if you want to as well, I'm sure. And they are going to be using the RFID filament rolls, which will automatically detect the filament inside of the CFS. And then from there, it'll assign the appropriate attributes to that filament, but you can use other filaments there as well. So this is just the regular, spec sheet that they provided here, but here is some more information about this printer here. I'm going to be looking off at this monitor. Okay, so here's the thing. The first thing is going to be for that glass door. Now, made famous by Uncle Jesse when the door shattered as he was trying to put it together. So I'm guessing that they saw that and they're trying to make sure that that does not happen again, or at least not as easily. So now the door is opening wider. It opens up wider now, and hopefully that'll stop some of the vicious snapback that can cause that door to shatter. But the door is still made of glass. So even though it's slightly redesigned, it's still made of glass. So you still want to be a bit careful with it. Now, let's talk about the CFS, the Creality Filament System. Now, one thing about it is that it does have a locking mechanism on it. So when you have all your filament inside of it, the lid can close, but if you want, you can also lock that lid. But unfortunately, unlike the Anycubic Ace Pro that's coming out, the CFS is not actively heated, so it doesn't double as a filament dryer. Instead, you're going to have to use desiccant in order to try to regulate the dryness inside of that filament box. And Creality estimates that you'll be able to get below 40% humidity levels when you use the desiccant inside of the CFS when it's closed. So that means that you are still going to have your external filament dryer, especially if you're trying to print with some really hygroscopic materials. It would have been great if they included a dryer function with the CFS, but they didn't. Maybe in the next model, I guess we'll see. Now, another thing about the CFS is that RFID filament, and even though you can use other people's filaments, other brands' filaments as well, if you aren't going to be using it, you can still go into the settings directly on the printer, which is a full color touchscreen, and then you can assign the different attributes for that filament to the printer. So you can change the temperatures if you want, you can change that, and then they also have this pretty extensive list of different filament types that you can choose from as well if you want to have a more automated approach if you aren't going to be using their RFID filament. So that makes things a little bit easier for us on that front. And then also, since you can use 4 of the CFS units at once, cool thing about it is you don't need external power to run it, because those filament systems, the CFS, is going to be all powered by the printer itself, and they're going to use around 10 watts of power each. So no power strip to plug all those in. The printer is going to handle all of that easily. And the printer itself has a power rating of 1200 watts. And then also in addition to that, they say that it can intelligently regulate the amount of power that it draws. So if it needs more power for any reason at all, it'll draw more. And then when it doesn't need it anymore and it requires less power to operate, it will draw less power. So hopefully that can help on some energy savings potentially as well. And that's always a good thing. And I don't know how much it means to you, but they're using something called like a 485 communication protocol. I'm not too sure what that means, but according to Creality, it's a more stable kind of connection, and it'll help cut down on some like transfer errors or some communication errors that can happen between the equipment. Maybe, I don't know, but that's just something that they said that it can do. If you are curious about the poop chute of the Creality K2 Plus, it is located on the back, which is not ideal. It definitely reminds me of when everyone was getting upset about filament spool holders being put on the back, because depending on what your setup is, it may not be as easy to get to the back of the printer. And that's especially true if you're going to be just dumping out a bunch of filament. There's nothing on the back of the K2 Plus to catch the filament. It's literally, it's just a hole that's there. So there's going to be plenty of designs that people come up with in order to do that, but I do anticipate that being annoying, especially in like a print farm situation where you're trying to maximize space and you have racks pushed up against the wall maybe, and then you need some place to catch the poop. So it would have been great if it just came from the side or maybe even the front, but they have it coming out the back, so that's something else that we have to deal with there. The inside of the printer also is going to be using some dual fans, so that's opposed to just having a single fan. So we got dual fans, should definitely help with some cooling. And then also the print head itself has a magnetic cover. You can easily just take it off. And if you want to replace or need to replace the extruder or the hot end, both of those are attached to the printer with 2 screws each. So undoing 2 screws will allow you to take the hot end off, and then undoing 2 screws will allow you to take the extruder off as well. And also about the extruder gears, they're now using hardened steel gears for that. So no plastic gears, they're using hardened steel, which is a very, very good thing. And those are the things that I was able to dig up that I did not see here on this spec sheet that I think will be very useful to know about the Creality K2 Plus, and maybe can influence you or not, or whether or not you want to purchase this. But if you do want to purchase this, I do have to give you a little bit of word of warning, because we have to kind of look at the past and see what happened with the Creality K1 and how there was a lot of excitement around that, but that printer came out and it had issues that needed to be resolved through actually replacing parts on the printer that Creality just started giving away for free because they knew that they had messed up, and they didn't do a recall, they just kind of fixed it in post. And since this is a brand new thing, and as of right now, we haven't actually seen this in action nice and close, and there hasn't been like really independent viewings of this printer in an uncontrolled setting, those are definitely things that you have to consider as well. So even though these prices are really good, you're still kind of rolling the dice. Things may turn out to be working wonderfully, or it may be some things that need to be fixed later on down the line, but you have to kind of make that decision whether these savings that you can get could be worth the potential headaches that you can encounter, or if you want to play it completely safe, you can just sit back and let everyone else test it and then just try to get the fixed upgraded version, if there is one, later down the line. So I definitely have to let you know about that. But anyway, that's all I wanted to tell you about the Creality K2 Plus in the pre-orders. Remember, it's going to be starting on June 5th, which is Wednesday at 9 o'clock. And links in the description to every territory in the world where this is going to, in case you are interested. So let me know if you are interested in purchasing this printer. And yeah, we'll see how it all works out in the end. So thank you all so much for watching. Till next time, take care of yourselves. I'll speak to you soon.